Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to talk to you about two different types of leadership, such as democratic leadership style and autocratic leadership styles. But before I start that, I would like to briefly mention the event that occurred during Albert Einstein. Once he was going to one of his lectures, and he was just discussing and talking with his driver that I'm tired of these things going too much on the lecture, but I'm very keen to go back to my laboratory for the further research. And driver said, I can do it if you want me to. And Albert Einstein looked at the driver and said, really? He goes, yes. They agreed. And the driver went to lecture. They swapped their top. In the start lecturing, after completion of the lecture, one of the professor asked a question. And the driver said, oh, this is really good one and very complex question, but the answer is so simple that even my driver can answer it for you. So I'll go back to leadership style. The aim of the autocratic says, do as I say. That's the main timeline of the autocratic style. And while democratic says, what do you think? That's the main difference. And this is a common practice in most of the first world countries or third world countries, is the autocratic leadership styles. And we move on to, as a leader, I don't have a chain to put on the table to show you guys. If there was a chain, you put all the chain on the table. As a leader, you push the chain, nothing happens. Or they'll just move around, scatter around. But as a good leader, if you take the chain, one of the chain, you start moving, you start walking with it, so every chain will follow after you. So the aim of the game is to perfect yourself, have inspirational ideas, having a self-development on a daily basis in order to be a good leader. As a good leader, when you say to a person, do this job for me, you create only a worker. But as a successful leader, you say, I trust you, go and complete this task. And then they will do the task, they will be happy with a good moral, and they will be a future leader. So as a leader, you need to understand and act accordingly to different situations. The good thing about autocratic leadership style, as I mentioned, is one-way system. You make the decision, you are the responsible for the task. And decision making is very quick and a good discipline. But this can be applied in an army or in some strict martial arts schools. And not always. Or maybe there's another prime example, is the Trump organization. Donald Trump is applying his autocratic leadership style in his organization and practicing his democracy in the real world as a president of the United States. And we're just highlighting some of the application of the autocratic. During the time of emergency, as I mentioned, if there's a fire, you just make a quick decision and motivate the workers at the same time. But moving on to democratic leadership style, you say, what do you think? Everything happens, it got to be through a process of meetings. That's why they have weekly meetings, monthly meetings. Nothing happens, no decision can be made unless there is a process. And the decision maker and the decision taker are sitting on the same table, on a round table, they make a decision. That's the good thing about the leadership style. But some of the democratic leaders, their heart says, I am the autocratic person. But their tongue, their face, their situation shows, yes, I'll say I'm a Democrat person. But most of the time, the real democracy does not exist, to be honest. So democracy is man-made law for the people. And this can be applied in one particular situation and one particular area, but not on another place. Because every man, every culture have different principles, so it's difficult to manage that. And the good thing, as I mentioned, is the performance and productivity will really goes high, and decision making is good, and the moral of the employees or the followers will be really good in terms of being valued in the organization. And the advantage of the democratic leadership style is that they will have ability to create a value in the organization, and the job satisfaction comes into place. And we'll move on to disadvantages. When you make a decision, there will be a time consuming. So every meeting is a time consuming. I just remember one of the event that happened and back home in Afghanistan. They say when it comes to decision making, there was meeting and meeting. The people were not used to a democracy at that time. So they will start complaining to their leaders that please, let's have less meetings and start acting. And the leader replied back, okay, let's have a meeting then to discuss if you're gonna have a meeting or not. So there's always time consuming, time barriers. That's the bad thing about it. So I don't want to take so much of your time. I just kept it very brief, and I hope you enjoyed it. So it depends, as I said, it depends on the person, it depends on the situation, which leadership style are you going to follow. Sometimes you can apply your autocratic style, sometimes you can apply your democratic style, but you have to be clever and you have to improve yourself and you have to stand out in the crowd. Otherwise, why would they follow you? If you don't have the sufficient education, a financial education, particularly for in the business, if you see another smart follower, they'll become a very good leader, or successful leader, or effective leader, but you'll be left behind. So you need to move yourself all the time. You have to improve yourself. At the same time, you need to look after, you need to value your subordinates in order to perform better in the organization. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great time.